Good morning. This is
Good
Bob Brown.
morning.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lost, but I'm coming back in right now. There you are. There you are.
Okay. And here, let me do it this way because I had it where Troy was just dominating the screen.
Adam, please. Nobody calls me Troy.
I'm sorry, Adam. Sorry. You'd think we had talked about that before the show. But this is Bob Brown, and I have Adam Troy Castro here with us today for BQ Sunday morning.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, Adam Troy. And just
morning,
a reminder, one of the reasons Adam's here, other than the fact that this is your second appearance, and I'm glad every time you've been here, is that he wrote us for Post-Row Alternatives an incredible number one new release when we put it out, an incredible story.
Thank you.
Oh my God! Everybody who's read it said it's incredible. So I'm an editor, publish anthologies. My whole life is about the words that come out of other people's mouths and the work that comes off of other people's computers. So, given that, the saying me repeating what other people say about you, especially given how good it is just my nature. So, good morning, Adam. How are you today?
Morning. This morning, I'm really happy that I checked the time for this because I was not ready to sign in for another hour and a half. So I'm really glad to be here. I almost left you there holding body parts in your hands. So I'm really glad that I have turned out to be here.
Well, that makes two of us because I think between us and our folks that are out there watching, and by the way, I've just put them on there. They're all saying good morning to you.
Good morning. I see all the messages. Happy Samhain, happy Hallows, and hello Cheryl. Hello Cheryl. I see you, and Robin. I see you. These are people from my page.
And they're wonderful folks. I love to see them here. I love seeing them on Facebook. And for those who are going to hang with Twitter through the return of the rough days, good to see you guys too. Oh, hey, Robin likes my mug. Which one is? Oh, this one, the go away mug.
That's the mug she likes.
Hey, I could use my flowery mug. I don't know. Some people manage their coffee cups. I just seem to pile them up until I get enough to go to the sink.
So I have a couple of mugs that I can never ever use to drink coffee with. This one mug I have is the design of a donut, and it has a hole right through it, big enough to put 3 fingers in. And you can't drink coffee with this mug. You can't. Goes all over your face.
The best mug I've got is I bought 4 of them because I'm sitting there chatting with Jim and David after last month's show. And they showed me their mugs they had. They had these glass mugs, pure clear glass with a vapor barrier in between. And Jim had them. David went down to go to see Jim, liked him so much that he bought himself or got a set. And then they were telling me on them. So I bought a set. And clearly those 2 people are far more coordinated than I am because I promptly broke 3 of the 4 I bought. And these are just as fragile, but for some reason they didn't break, and I figured it out. The other ones are so light that if I reach for it and I accidentally hit it without getting it right, it'll fall over immediately. These are so heavy, they'll resist the touch. So, what is your favorite kind of a coffee mug there, Adam?
A big one. A big one the size of my head. Because what my coffee maker gives you is this much coffee. And I need to fill it up 3 or 4 times before I even get close to the amount of coffee that I actually consume on a daily basis. I need a gigantic coffee mug. I need the kind of mug that you take on long. There, Jim. Jim is here.
Hey, Adam, how you doing?
How are you doing? I see your collar's missing.
Yeah, I got it here though. In case I wanted to do the joke, I got it right here.
Hey, we were talking about that.
Are we live? Are we live?
We are live now.
All right. Hi. Sorry I'm late. It's been kind of a rough week around here, and I'm not moving very fast. So glad to see everybody.
We got you in the aftermath, and me in the pre-math, because I'm
yeah.
Do you have your coffee mug, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, that little glass one. Hold it up close to the camera. We've been discussing your coffee mug while you were gone.
What's that?
Beautiful little thing.
David has it. It's a full size mug. I don't know about a little. It's a full. I got one that's about 3 times the size of this that I do coffee into. I like these. They're vacuum. They're a vacuum flask, so they keep the coffee hot for an hour. So I'm not a fan of cold coffee. So how you doing, Adam?
I'm doing all right. We're still up. I'm not going to go into details here for anybody who's listening, but I'm having a bit of a medical thing going on, which will be taken care of in about 3 or 4 weeks, and I've been dealing with that, and so right now I've been dealing with 2 or 3 doctor's visits a week. Yeah, I'm one of these people from assisted living who just their social life is going to 3 or 4 doctor's appointments a week, and that's what I'm doing now, and it'll be over hopefully in a few weeks. But that's what I am about an hour away from my doctor. I'm commuting to a doctor that many times a week.
Right. There's nothing fun about any of that. I had surgery on Monday. I'm not allowed to drive for 2 weeks, so you gotta prevail, and I gotta have friends and family drive me to medical appointments for another week or so until all this healed up. So nothing fun about getting old, I can tell you that.
I can tell you one. I agree with you there. One special piece of arrangement that I'm going to be making is I have 2 cats. 2.5 cats, actually.
Right, 2.5 cats.
Yeah. Here's the half.
Right.
So I have 2.5 cats. They are leaving my house for the week before the surgery, and then the week of the surgery because I need somebody to take care of them, and then the week after the surgery because I do not want them walking on me after the surgery.
Right. I have a beagle that went through surgery 3 days or 2 days after I did, and he's in worse shape than I am. I posted a picture of me wearing the cone yesterday out of sympathy with him, but he tore an ACL in his back leg, and so he had to have that replaced, and that's major surgery for the dog. And,
how old is he?
He's about 3 years old. He's a very active little guy, and so, which is probably why he tore. He likes to wrestle with a big dog, and he's very fast, and he runs around all the time. And so for him to spend the next 4 weeks in basically confined to either a kennel or a pad where he can't move around is he's not a happy guy. He just lays there and looks at it, all sad looking, but he's healing well, and so that's good. He's usually in here with me. He's usually on the floor right here, and so he's in the house with my wife at the moment. And for those who don't know, my office is separate from my house. It's a different building, and so he's inside. He don't get to go outside and run around, especially today because it's raining. And so he's a very sad little guy at the moment. But he's doing well and he's healing well, so that's good. So he and I kind of sit on the couch at night and commiserate. our respective damage. So,
A man and his dog.
Is David joining us, Bob, or not?
Your guess is as good as mine.
The cold but mild.
Adam and I were all prepared to
carry on without us
alone.
No, I was resigned to it. Not prepared to. I was resigned to it.
Resigned to it. You got to carry the load. Well, if anybody can do it, it's certainly you. So
I think you're both good for this. Now, there's a reason both of you are here, besides the fact that you're just spectacular human beings and a credit to the written word.
Bob, I'm already in pain. Please stop blowing. They're already working on my insides. You're blowing more smoke up my ass. I'm going to look like beef jerky. So just let's get on with it.
Hey, Jim, don't give me any shit about this. You are a spectacular writer. Adam Troy is a spectacular writer. You wouldn't be in a BQ publication if you weren't a spectacular writer.
I got to get back to doing it. I'm damn it. I can't concentrate this week. So I'm the last 2 weeks. So we're getting back though. We're getting there. So.
Well, the reason that two of you have in common right now, other than the fact that you were both in our first book, and
wow.
You both shaped it mightily of alternative truths. Adam Troy wrote the opening story for it, which was
right.
actually.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was the.
I don't remember what the hell I wrote. I can't even remember.
Oh, it was a little phone call about Hillary. You know.
Oh yeah, that's right. Hillary. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It just cracked me up, and I
work
said,
together after a while.
"Oh, it was vicious." I mean, he put Trump. He had Trump down, and I said, "Well, let's see. If I put this first, I got told it might offend some people." And on the other hand, I said, if I put it first, anybody opening this book knows exactly what kind of book they're getting. And considering it spent 6 days as number one, I think I owe Adam Troy a big thank you for introducing a book into what it was. And then once they got into the book, it was boom. There was Trump at Gettysburg.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's the thing is that well, we'll have more ammo here soon because they're gonna let him back on Twitter, and so I'm sure there'll be plenty of fodder for future sarcastic articles. So
yeah, it's going to be really good for you. You're going to have a whole new right-wing audience discovering.
God, I don't know. I had. I don't know if you followed along or not, but it said, people are leaving Twitter in droves because, of course, Elon Musk bought the place, and I've got people literally saying to me, I'm not gonna be on any social media platform that's run by some, billionaire oligarch. I'm like, which one is that? Because I get this all day. I get this constantly all day. Don't buy from Amazon because it's run by a billionaire. Don't use Microsoft because it's run by a billionaire. Don't shop at this grocery store chain. Don't use this social media platform. If I was as woke as half the internet accuses me of being, or as woke as half the rest of the internet wants me to be, I would probably be wearing a burlap sack, living in a cave somewhere, and because you literally can't turn around in the world nowadays without running afoul of somebody's principles and ideology, and while all those things are great in kind of an academic sense, in reality, this is the nature of the world that we live in. And if you're going to allow yourself to be silenced or limited because some billionaire asshole took something over, you're not going to get very damn far anymore. And the only person that's going to suffer from that is you, because they don't.
Yeah, the major problem is that almost anything that is modern and worth getting today has to be created by a billionaire or by a government. It's
or government or a large corporation, or
a large concern has to do it. I mean, yes, you can go to a small bookstore, of which there are precious few, or you can go to a huge chain bookstore, and there's a difference there. Or you could buy a buggy whip from this one little guy who makes buggy whips, or you could buy it from the massive buggy whip, the massive buggy whip industry which rules the earth.
Well, sure, and like I said, I buy stuff from small artists and from small crafters and from various people that I try to support small outfits, but in reality, I don't care. Unless you're going to be a hermit and live in a hole somewhere, you got to get around, and that means that, for example, you got to get around, and so that means you're going to use, or you're going to use electricity, or you're going to use a vehicle that's built by some guy somewhere. And those large corporations, there's no way. I mean, hell, even if I buy a horse, I'm probably buying grain from some giant egg conglomerate. The goddamn thing. There's no way to exist in this world without supporting some billionaire oligarch somewhere. It's just not possible. And the thing that kills me is so many people that are willing to silence their voices and the voices of everyone else for their sacred principles. And I get it, and maybe even I agree. But the truth of the matter is that there were a hell of a lot. This isn't anything new. There were a hell of a lot of people at the turn of the last century who were beholding to the robber barons of the United States of America. And the problem with that is either you lived in a company town and you bought from the company store, and you ate in a company restaurant, you worked at a company job, you didn't work. That's just how it is. And the thing that kills me is, and in fact I said this, many times yesterday online. I've done nothing but get beat up for the last 24 hours for saying it, but the thing is that the foil, the thing that's supposed to prevent this or to moderate it or to give people like you and me an equal footing with those billionaires is government. And that is literally your tool against these massive corporations. And in fact, this morning I said, it's an innocuous, inoffensive comment. What I said is that social media has become so integrated into society. It's the place that people get information. It's the place that people socialize. It's how you keep in touch with your kids for a thousand away. It's how people see the world. It's how they learn what their politicians are thinking. Good or bad, right or wrong, social media has become an integrated part of our society. It shapes our society. And don't tell me it doesn't. And it doesn't matter because Elon Musk spent $44 billion to buy the goddamn thing. Trust me, social media matters. And yet I still have people saying to me, just turn it off. You don't need it. Go away. Well, that is a position of privilege. That's like saying you don't need a phone. You don't need a TV. You don't need a car. But, and that's true. Some people, sure, you can pull the plug and live off grid. But for a lot of people, this is an integrated part of how they exist nowadays. For a hell of a lot of people that were dying in warehouses 10 years ago, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, these things provide a window to the world that they never had before. And the thing is that because it's so critical, we have reached a point where it must be regulated. And someone said to me, well, who would even regulate it? Who would regulate it? Fucking government. Goddamn, man, where the hell have you been?
I think we should get my grandfather to do it. It's a stupid question. Stupid statement.
And I yelled at people on my own forum this morning because I'm so sick of it. The attitude of nothing can be done. Everything is this. America has become this nation of reflexively contrary and depressive defeatist. Nothing can be done. No idea is any good. Every problem is insurmountable. Just let the billionaires have it. Walk away. And And that's what they tell me, and this is what people say to me, just walk away from it. Really. And that's a hell of an attitude because what do you do? I live in Florida District 1. Matt Gaetz is my representative. What should I do? I don't like him. I don't like him anymore. I like Elon Musk. So I just walk away, just give up my house, fucking leave, wander off into the wilderness somewhere, find somewhere better.
You can't. There's most of what you use today, mom and pop are irrelevant. Okay, you can't supply yourself with mom and pop things. You can do it in terms of
sure.
writers. You get books by writers who are indie writers, little known writers, people who do not get their books shelved at Publix. You could do it with restaurants. Instead of going to Ruby Tuesday, you go to that little Jamaican place that's a hole in the wall.
Sure.
You can read that blogger who is a great political blogger. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but you can't do something. You can't supply yourself out of mom and pop. I can't take a flight up to New York to see my family with some guy who started up last week. I can't do that, nor do I want to.
Right.
Nor do I want to. I like the idea of my airline having a lot of money. So I am not a communist. I want my airline to have a lot of money. I want my airline to be able to actually care that some of that money should be spent on safety and my comfort and on services and things like that.
Not redesigning smaller seats.
Not designing even smaller seats. Although fortunately I am getting both thinner and shorter. So that's
I'm not getting shorter, but I did get quite a bit thinner this week, so that's a plus, I guess.
But people say you can't support certain things. Yes, you can make a choice of what you're going to do. I do not think Michael's is a completely free from sin craft store. I don't think so. But I have a Michael's near me, and if I want to buy Micron pens, I will go to Michael's as opposed to Hobby Lobby. You make these choices because these are the choices that are available, and they have to be. And the people who say things like, give you an example, I will not watch Netflix because they canceled that one superhero show I like. And that's the only thing in the world
read my Facebook page
show that I can possibly care about. That I will get the network for 1 month because I will watch that superhero show. At a certain point, you have to realize these are the providers,
right?
And in some cases, it's a good thing that the providers are big and organized.
Right.
I don't say otherwise, unless you're buying a buggy whip, or unless you're buying unless you're buying a book from a small press, which brings us back to the beginning,
or artwork.
Yeah, true.
Just in case. But no, and I absolutely agree with you. The thing is that what I see is on one side I see and again, I'm gonna watch it come across the bottom of the screen. My God, you're engaged in both sides, or is it? I'm not. What I'm saying is that there are problems on both sides. They're not the same problems, but there are attitudes that are leading to disaster, and you're seeing it coming. Society has a certain inertia. It's like a rock rolling down a hill or a car without brakes, and these are things that always fascinated me when I was a lot younger. I look at things like the Holocaust, and you say, how in the name of God did someone not stop that before it happened? Before, in the 1920s, when fascism was rising in Europe, how did someone not say, holy shit, this is crazy? We know how to stop this guy. All you got to do is look around America 100 years later, and you can see how it happened. It happens because society has a certain level of inertia that becomes, in some cases, impossible to overcome or extremely difficult to overcome. And you can see that happening right now. I mean, I spent this morning for hours looking at the anti-Semitism that is currently rising in America across social media, led by a handful of voices. Now, I'm not saying that they're the cause of it. They're the people who made it okay to say it out in public. You know what I'm saying? And a certain rap star that said something, and now there's people standing on overpasses from California to Florida waving fucking signs with this guy's name on it, talking about Jewish people. What the hell, man? In America, 100 years later. And yet, as wrong as we know that ideology to be, it's picking up speed because there's a certain inertia in our society where politicians are always in a precarious position. There is an incentive for them to remain quiet, to go along instead of being leaders. Because right now, every single member of our government, from the lowest accountant to the elected guy in the White House, should be standing the fuck up on every channel and on every podium saying, stop.
Yeah.
This is America. We are not that nation. This will end now. But
and here's a thing from history that is the other side. It happens to be true that it is possible, not frequent, but it is possible for even these massive corporations to take a stand against this stuff. Absolutely. And the best example that I can come up with historically is Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers in 1933, 1934 was not making a raft of superhero movies. Let's put it this way. Right. Warner Brothers was mostly interested in telling good stories, and one of their engines for telling good stories was issue stories, the problems of the day, the stories ripped from the headlines. To imagine a corporation doing this today is absolutely unspeakable. And what they did stories about unemployment, about racism, about the poverty in the streets during the Depression, all sorts of things like that. Warner Brothers, I mean, the gangster movies of the 1930s were very much current events movies. And Warner Brothers, one of the things they wanted to do around 1933, 1934, was to make a movie about this horrible threat coming out of Europe, fascism, Nazism. Mr. Warner, being Jewish, took this very seriously. And he wanted to make a movie about how evil the Nazis were. 1933, 1934, they were warned by the Breen office, which was actually a right-wing construction, a way of controlling the Jews in Holland, that if they did a Nazi movie, they would be interrogated by the Senate and government agencies, which Roosevelt could not control, until they were put out of business. They were warned, you absolutely cannot do this. The Breen office would not allow this. And so Harry Warner took two steps. The first is that he said, all right, then we will no longer distribute any of our movies to our greatest market in Europe, Germany. Can you just and this was the greatest market. Mm-hmm. Right now, we don't make movies critical of the Chinese for this very same reason. We don't do it because, oh my God, you can't have a blockbuster movie that turns a profit unless they see it in China. You can't do that. And so wait a minute, you don't want the Chinese guy to be a villain. They bent over backwards to say otherwise when they made Shang-Chi. And the other thing that the Warners did was they said, all right, but you can't stop us from researching. And by the time they were able to make movies about the Nazi menace, it was 1938, 1939. World War II was starting. They were able to do that. And so there were a flurry of anti-Nazi movies that came out from the major studios then, from Charlie Chaplin to the Three Stooges. And on December 7th, 1941, there was an actual Senate investigatory hearings going on about the communism of Hollywood, because they were talking about how evil the Nazis were in some of their movies that early, and they were talking about, you can't possibly allow these Jews to get away with this.
Right.
And suddenly,
there was a huge anti-Semitic current in America prior to, and still was even at the end of the war. But absolutely.
The point of view is that this major corporation was able to do this. This major corporation took every step, and it was the entrenched fascistic powers in the United States that were actually preventing them from going further for a long, long time.
And I'll say that, and I agree with everything you said, but I will also caveat it by saying that if you watch Warner Brothers produced cartoons from that time, particularly some of the Bugs Bunny stuff, racist and anti-Semitic tropes were very common in some of those cartoons that shaped how kids thought and how they saw the world. And a lot of those have been deleted. There, I went through a bunch of them are on YouTube, and actually went through watching a number of those, and realized that I'd seen them as a child myself, and did not, of course, then realize what I was looking at. And so they're very cringeworthy nowadays. And so it's a measure, like you said, one of the things, and of course, I don't always comment. I'm careful about where I comment, because I haul 500,000 people along with me, and then your feeds are deluged with me. But I read everything that you write, and I read your movie reviews religiously, and it's always a measure, especially your older ones when you're reviewing movies that occurred in the 50s and 60s. And so for me, it's a real bellwether, a measure of society reflected in our media. And I think your observation, what you just said, is incredibly valid from an academic standpoint, where you stand back and you look passionately at how our society evolved, and in some cases not evolved, or has cycled back around almost exactly 100 years later to very similar mindsets. And you have to wonder, and you don't really have to wonder, because you know what the answer is that whether this stuff was there all along and it was just carefully suppressed by decorum, by custom, by societal convention, and now our politics and so-called leaders have made it okay to be those people again, and it's and this is why I am unwilling to divest myself of platforms like Twitter, because I'll be goddamned if I'm going to leave that space to the anti-Semites, to the fascists, to the Elon Musks, to the Donald Trumps, without protest, without pushback. And now, does that work for everybody? Absolutely not. And there were a number of folks that brought things up yesterday that said, well, you can do that because you're a white male and you're you, but for other people, it's not safe anymore. And that's an absolutely valid observation. And I said that online, that you have to ultimately do what's right for you. When Europe was falling into savagery in the 1930s, it was absolutely correct for some people to stay and fight, and it was absolutely correct for other people to flee. And some people waited too long to flee, and it cost them everything. And you're the only one that can make that decision.
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah, I can't make that for you. You can't make that for other people. And I would be the last person to say, "Hey, you vulnerable person, you have to stand up and risk your life."
Yeah. You want to know? This is aside from the fact, it's an interesting piece of trivia that's related to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
My wife died recently. She was a thank you. She comes from a family that came to the United States around the 1910s. Very large group, family with many cousins left back in Europe. And so she descended from the people who came over, as are many of us.
Sure.
That family was the Franks.
Mm-hmm.
I am related by marriage to Anne Frank.
Right.
You know, and it absolutely, and in my own life, my grandmother lost seven or eight brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. It's not that long ago. It's not that long ago. We have people alive today whose grandparents were slaves.
Well, you have people alive today whose grandparents were slaves. You have people alive today who still have tattoos on their arms from Nazi concentration camps, and these horrors are within our lifetime. They're within our societal memory. They are here every day, and yet we still see this. Again, this is why the current trend to suppress history, to cover up the bad things, is so goddamn dangerous. It's here in Florida, you and I both live in this ridiculous dick-shaped state, and our governor doesn't want us teaching. We're going to teach American history in the state, and we're not allowed to say white people owned black people in the South. We can say there was slavery, but we can't say who was responsible for it and who was oppressed.
We can't say the towns were wiped out by angry.
Right. You literally can't say that it was racially motivated. I mean, my God, man. And this is like, how do you teach the Holocaust without saying it was Jewish people? 6 million of them that were the fucking kids. But that's literally what we're doing about slavery in America in the state of Florida. And when you forget, when
bring
you
it back,
history,
bring it back for a second to Warner Brothers. Again, this is related. When the Warner Brothers made The Life of Emile Zola in the 1930s, which was about the famous Dreyfus case in France.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, Dreyfus was the French officer who was persecuted because he was Jewish.
Right.
That movie was not able to get away with telling us that Dreyfus was Jewish. Right. So they told us they related. There's like one fraction of a second where you see the word Jewish. They managed to sneak it in a long line of data, but the whole point of that case was that he was Jewish and therefore he had to be a spy. Right. Okay? And the movies were unable to get away with this. And that's the same kind of crap that's going on right now. You're unable to explain some of the horrors that went on. David.
Yes. Go on. Let me catch up.
No, we were on horrors that go on and suddenly David appeared. I'm not saying that's a coincidence, but I'm not saying it's not.
You say Candyman 3 times and he shows up.
That's right.
You say chocolate 3 times and I show up.
That's right. Chocolate 3 times. But no, you're absolutely correct. And you see examples of that all around us. You saw it during the entire Obama administration with the attempts by his opponents to render him illegitimate, and from the birth certificate to his parentage, etc. It's very similar to the Dreyfus case, the movie that you refer to, where you're not allowed to say the words, but the reason the guy's being persecuted is because the entire foundation of that situation was that the powers that be said, this guy is illegitimate. This guy is not a valid person. This is, he must be a spy. He must be a subversive. He must be less than human because X, Y, and Z. And And you see that all around us now. I see this. In fact, I saw this yesterday. Of course, yesterday was the first day that Elon Musk was running Twitter. And of course, you've seen that by now. You've all seen the reports of the massive uptick in racism and anti-Semitism and misogyny and blah blah blah. And Twitter, okay, 500% increase. Wow, it's Twitter every day. But you see those words, and I sat and I watched for them. I ran searches for words yesterday where you saw a certain segment of this population referring to other people in this society as cockroaches, as rats, and those and vermin. And those words are the same words, word for word, that fascist societies 100 years ago used to render other people illegitimate and justify herding them into camps for extermination, because that's what you do with vermin.
Cockroaches was the actual word used in Rwanda.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. You're seeing the same words. You're seeing the words of genocide and the Holocaust and fascism. You're seeing those words. And you got people standing right down by you, standing on overpasses with rendering the Nazi salute and flying fucking swastikas. And the part that makes me laugh is that when I call them Nazis, they say, whoa, hang on. Where do you get this Nazi thing? Dude, you're wearing a Nazi uniform, flying a fucking swastika.
What puzzles me
the hell are you offended about?
Is how can any American who has even the slightest sense of history not know? Have we really reprogrammed our culture so much that there's a whole segment of our society that has retreated into that? I don't know. It's very depressing to discover that human beings are,
hello, Aiden.
Stupid. I mean, it's like,
It's 2022.
It's
1922 all over. Yeah.
There's things I'm not going to say online because they'll be misinterpreted. I'll say the mild version. I know a lot of liberals who are thinking two things: that it's time to buy some ammunition for the guns. Notice I already have the guns. And the other thing is they're thinking maybe we should move to Canada or Mexico or Ireland or New Zealand or Australia. I'm hearing this a lot from people who really don't want to live in a fascist society. And, it's like there were Jews who left Germany starting in 1932 and they got out and they, in retrospect, they were smart. And there were Jews who said, oh, no, this is the land of Beethoven and Goethe. It's like, we'll find our sanity again. Yeah. The hard way when Eisenhower and Patton arrived.
I shall be right back. I'm looking for
sense. Yeah, and we mentioned that a little bit. It's funny. I guess the three of us all kind of think the same way, which is probably what we're all doing here. But I had mentioned exactly what you were just talking about here a couple of minutes ago, and that's exactly right. And it's like I said earlier, I can't tell people what the hell to do. I'm going to stay and fight, but that in retrospect turned out to be a bad idea, and I'm too goddamn old to leave now. But the truth of the matter is that for some people the right answer is to get the hell out of here, and that includes whether it's leaving certain social media platforms or leaving the state or leaving the country. And I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong if you go. On the other hand, I'm going to stay here and tell you to throw me out or come to get me. But it's stunning to me how you can see it coming. We can all see it coming. And the thing that aggravates me the most is the lack of loud and firm leadership on the left and the willing complicity on the right. there are people, now, folks, as much as it pains me to say this out loud, folks like Ted Cruz are not stupid. This guy's a Ivy League educated lawyer. He's not dumb. His own ancestors were persecuted. They left the country they were in because they were persecuted. They went to another country and then they came here. Ted Cruz isn't stupid, but he's willing to go along with fascism, knowing where it goes for power, because he thinks he's going to be one of the ones on top, willing to let it go where it's going. And he's not the only one. Now, someone like Trump, I doubt Trump has any concept of anything that he's saying beyond what he's saying in that moment, all right? Because he never says goddamn thing. I mean, he contradicts himself. He's stupid. Don't get me wrong. But the folks around him, those people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Ron Johnson, Tom Cotton, these people aren't stupid. They know where we're going.
And one thing that never ceases to infuriate me on a daily basis, turning it toward liberals right now, is that as a demographic, we are so damn obsessed with microaggressions that we ignore the macroaggressions. There are women in this country dying because they can't get prenatal care because they can't get abortions, and we're arguing about the honeymooners.
I'll give you a perfect example. I'll give you a perfect example. Exactly what you're saying. Yesterday, I had said, and I could call it up, but I won't bore you with it. But basically, what I said on Twitter was, "I'm going to stay. That we should stay and fight." Right? That's what I said. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about fighting. I spent my life in the military. I served in 2 wars. I know the difference between fighting and a metaphor, right? And yet, the entire rest of my fucking day yesterday on Twitter was a bunch of liberals who showed up to go, well, it's not really fighting. We need a different word. I mean, for fuck's sake, dude, there's fascists. There are little Nazis standing on an overpass, throwing the Hitler salute, and you're worried about the goddamn metaphor that I fucking use.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one. I posted a thing on Facebook last week about how my sense of gender identity is that there's 8 billion different gender identities on the planet, right?
Right.
And
oh my God.
And a trans woman invaded, who's not a friend, is just a friend of a friend, just saw the post and came in to school me on the language that I said that wasn't the point of the post, and she went on and on and on. I finally just deleted the whole thing because it's like it proves your point. It's like instead of being angry at the transphobes and the homophobes and whatever, it's like you're using the wrong language. And somebody just said on the chat, leftists would rather police each other or fight with each other. No, it's not fighting. It's a discussion. Stop it. As Jim says, let's go after the fascists for a change.
And this has been going on for a long time. David, like me, loved Harlan Ellison, and the first writer who ever contacted me after I sold my first short story to give me a compliment was Avram Davidson, and the two of them had one thing in common: they would not allow their books to be translated and sold in Germany. They were both very serious about this. Death rather than have their books be translated and sold in Germany. And Harlan, as much as I love him, was very adamant about this point, even when I met him many decades after he made this decision. And my silent point, because one did not argue with Harlan easily unless one was willing to get into an argument. He says, so what you've done is you've said you don't want your voice, a perfectly good, sensible progressive voice to appear in the place that you're worried about, because you don't want to do business with Germans because Germans were Nazis. But your voice is the antidote to that. To say it's the same thing as when musicians were not playing Sin City, not allowing their albums to be sold there because they didn't want to support apartheid, or musicians who wouldn't allow their music to be played in the South on radio stations in the South. This is absolutely ridiculous. If you can speak loudly, you don't give up the speech. You don't give up the stage to those who are speaking loudly now.
Let me give you an example. The Beatles said they would not play in the South in any segregated auditorium. And that made a difference. Is if you wanted to see the Beatles, you were going to go to an integrated auditorium. And that made a difference. So I agree totally with is that you're not, by boycotting the opportunity to be heard, you're not helping anybody. I can understand where the emotion is coming from, but our job is to be heard.
I have a book. I will say to you, if I could build a book to show you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That same exact thought that Adam started and that David just said, this is how the Soviet Union fell. We didn't beat them with nuclear bombs. We didn't beat them on the battlefield. The Soviet Union collapsed when it was exposed to the outside world. When what defeated the Soviet Union was Levi's and blue jeans, and that's what's defeating communism in China right now. The current
let me tell you a story. The communists in the 60s, when there were riots in American cities like Detroit, the Soviet Union had the newsreels and said, "Look, there are riots in America." And the audiences said, look at the shoes they're wearing. They're wearing two-tone saddle shoes. The audiences reacted to the wealth of that. It's like that. It backfired.
I want to plug a book. I want to plug a book, not by me. For 1 second, I just want to plug a book, not by me, simply because the title of this book is absolutely wonderful. The book itself is better. Hello, Aiden. But
so I'm watching the kid and the dog in the background.
but from the book tells its entire thesis. It's by a friend of mine called Ben Burgess. I had to look at his name. He's a friend of mine. And to me, this book, the title of Canceling Comedians While the World Burns.
Yeah.
You know what the book is about. And it is the same thing. Arguing about the little stuff.
Right.
Arguing about the little stuff and policing each other. Some of which need, but at a certain point, at a certain point, we're on fire. Don't argue about the drapes.
Well, yeah, and again, and don't we dismiss all this out of hand. Some of it does need to be done. Actually, I have said I came out of a military background. When I first started writing, I said things that I find cringeworthy now, and there were people in my audience who came to me and said, "That's wrong." In fact, one of those people, right here on this podcast, David has said to me several times, "That's not how we talk about those sort of things." And you learn, you grow, you evolve, you get better. There are people that say things to me when I make a comment online that maybe take stock. In fact, one of those is Mary Revenant, who has said to me several times, "Hey," and I had to stop and think about what I was saying. And so you grow. So there's a certain level of self-policing and where we nudge each other to be better people that is absolutely necessary, because that's how we become better people. And I don't have a problem with that. Where I have a problem is where that becomes the only narrative. And I have a problem with that when again, we spend our times arguing about what yes, I use the word fight for Christ's sake. More than one thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be with tanks and guns in the street. But we spend all of our time arguing over the goddamn word while there actually are people fighting in the streets. Like, coming for you, buddy. And for fuck's sake, man, like I said, I'm a retired military officer, but I've served in 2 wars. I don't need you to tell me what the word fight means. Thanks. But again, we spend our time arguing over these things. you can see again, society there's an inertia to fascism. There's an inertia to authoritarianism. There's an inertia to society, to disaster, and you can see it coming. And at any point along the way, we could change course. And yet it requires people to stand up and stand in front of this rolling boulder and fight, to put your lives on the line, to say something, to push back against this stuff. You know, again, I'll say to you, one of the biggest mistakes we made, and you can see it because, again, there's this inertia, this mindset. You're the enemy. You're always the enemy, and it will never change. A perfect example is Cuba. The regime that we've been mad at for 70 fucking years is dying. They're dead. I'm not saying anything's perfect, but for God's sake, man, the way to defeat communism is not isolation. And if you want the people in that country to be like us, then the only way that happens is we all talk to each other. And we had a chance. We had a chance for a moment. We had a chance where we opened a dialogue and we opened communication and people started going back and forth between the countries. And goddamn, that the sons of bitches who've been trying to restart the Cold War for 75 years take back over and say, no, we're not going to have any of that. By God, they're the fucking enemy and they're going to be the enemy forever. That's how it is. We don't forgive these people.
That was in the 70s. In the 70s, we were all afraid of Red China, so we wouldn't have anything to do with them. When we opened up trade with China, they became much less of a threat.
Yeah. The worst thing that ever happened to China was taking over, was the British handing Hong Kong back to them, because now all the people that are 20 years old in China are saying, you know, I want a Lexus. I want a Rolex watch. I want 900 channels of cable TV. I want to watch fucking Star Wars without being censored. And all the 90-year-old communists in the pajamas are dying the hell off. You don't need guns to defeat communism. You need communication. If your society is better, then that should be obvious.
Yeah.
Isolation is like North Korea.
We could have, I mean, I swear to you, and I'm sure you agree with me, that if Trump had not come around and said, "Oh no, we can't, we gotta put Cuba behind a brick wall again," okay? If he had not done that, and we had tourism to Cuba again, oh my God, Cuba would be opening up right now. Right. The whole situation is that for God's sake, Cuba is an evil regime. Let us say that is absolutely true. It is not more evil than North Korea. It is not more evil than China. It is not more evil than Russia. It is an evil regime. It is not more evil than Venezuela was. It is an evil regime. But they have no choice to be what they are.
Right. My problem is things like this. We say, well, we can't. My God, we can't have any dialogue with Cuba because those sons of bitches are communists. Yeah. Pull down your pants and take a look at the label on your Fruit of the Looms and tell me what country that was made in. Because there's a 95% chance that it was made in Vietnam, which is a communist country where 58,000 of us died. And yet all our underwear is made there nowadays, and we dialogue with them every day. Half the shit in Walmart is made in communist China. Now, we're making a lot of political hay, by talking about the Chinese communist regime, but goddamn, we sure do love that cheap communist labor, don't we? If they made underwear in fucking Cuba, we'd be trading with them every day. It's convenient how, communism's bad here, but it's really great for profit all of a sudden. But if you really don't like communism, how come all your shit's made in a communist country? That don't make no sense to me.
Yeah,
there's
a related thing
that's because nobody wants to pay the full prices of workers having a living wage. In the communist country, they're lucky to get 50 cents an hour, right? they were getting a living wage, the prices would be more accurate to what would, and not only that, it would be more effective to manufacture things here in America rather than make them over there and have them shipped.
Absolutely. Everybody hates communism. I do all those cheap communist T-shirts. Go ahead.
There's a related thing, and again, I'm going back to an attack on the left, guys. I am a leftist. I'm left center, but I am far further to the left than my parents were, than a lot of my neighbors are. Certainly more than a lot of my neighbors are.
Right.
The left does it against Israel. Now, let me say, I think Israel is a brutal regime. If you're a Palestinian, it's a brutal regime. There's a lot of things going on there that I don't like. Absolutely so. But I am told in conversation by people who go back to Pakistan to visit relatives. I am told by people who go to China. I am told by people who go to any number of oppressive countries that Israel is the worst country in the world. And to the extent where if you have a family reason to go back there, you should not go back there. And I find this insane. I find this insanely stupid.
Yeah.
The zero tolerance should not work on one side. It should not be. It should not be covered by ideology on the right or on the left. I have absolutely no. I want to see Russia. I want to see China.
I'm thinking about going to Worldcon next year in China just to see China.
I am not.
Worldcon.
My current feeling with China in particular is that I will go to China as a tourist at some point when there's not a Worldcon there. I will not go to the genocide Worldcon. I just will not do it.
Well, I said I will say that again. We're kind of jumping on topics here. I will say what I said in Chicago, which is you can't call it a Worldcon if it's not the world. And as we were just talking about, the folks that are running, the writers that are writers, we know each other. I probably feel differently about it, but again, like I said, I've been places. I spent time in Israel. I spent time in Pakistan. The places that you were talking about, going back, I've been there. And, I have a hard time. I have a very hard time when it comes to China, talking about how repressive those regimes are, and they are certainly repressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not standing here being an apologist for brutality elsewhere in the world, whatever country it is, but I have a hard time talking about the lack of civil rights in China when in the United States of America, women don't have agency over their own bodies, when LGBT people are losing rights every day in every state in this country, when billionaires, we're very rapidly approaching the Russian model of oligarchy in the United States of America, when billionaires control the public narrative and the voting ballot box. I have a hard time saying, "Oh, the Chinese are terrible." They are, absolutely. But I don't live there. I live here, and I'm worried about. And again, don't be wrong. I have nothing but sympathy for people that have to live under those regimes, and I have sympathy for the folks in the occupied portions of Palestine that don't have agency over themselves or their own property or where they live. I absolutely do. Don't get me wrong. But I have a hard time pointing fingers at those people when I live in Florida District 1 and I'm seeing those same trends here. And we're not doing a hell of a lot. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And again, don't be wrong. Again, and I'm going to get now, and I know what's going to happen because I'm going to get 10,000 emails from people saying, "Well, you're both sided. They're obviously so much worse." Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying that they're not. What I'm saying is that we went. I see this all the time. These proud Americans with the hats and the flags, and we fought the Nazis in Germany. Yeah. and a significant fraction of our army were people of color who had no rights when they came home. And it took another 30 years for those people. We're stepping ourselves on the back about freeing some white people in Germany. People in our own goddamn country didn't have any rights. And so, again, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I absolutely agree with it. And I agree. And before you send me hate mail and fucking DMs, yeah, I got it, man. I'm there. But there's some self-inspection.
Let me expand on that. One of the things that changed America in the 50s and into the 60s, well into the 70s, was public protests. And as much as oh my God, there were riots and this and that, the powers that pay attention when 1 million people showed up on the mall in Washington.
Yeah, damn
now,
right.
The Republicans go in, literally they leave the city. But I'm thinking, if we can't do it by the ballot box, protests, it is possible that massive protests, millions of people turning out surrounding federal buildings, Los Angeles and Chicago and Washington, D.C. and New York, is going to have an impact on the government. And, we could topple a fascist regime simply by, a one-day general strike, a one-week general strike. We could do it. But it requires the kind of organization that, I know people who are already talking about how do you set up a resistance in this country that cannot be stopped.
Right, and
protests, not riots.
And they're not talking right wing.
Yeah, protests, not riots, which is, it unfortunately may come to that, but we're talking about letting a federal office building know that we are unhappy, not going inside and slamming furniture against the wall.
Right. And you have to, the people that organize those protests have to be responsible and have to police that, because all of that's counterproductive. But I will say this, guys.
Martin Luther King's March on Washington, with Bayard Rustin managing the logistics. The place was cleaner when they left. Everybody picked up after themselves because they had been properly trained and taught, and the rules were set down. Here's how we're going to protest, and 1 million people police themselves.
Right. Now I will say this to you, and I absolutely 100% agree that I think it's coming to that. But what infuriates, and you know what? There will be enthusiasm for that. People will turn out for that, and they'll stand in the street in the rain, and they'll sing, and they'll chant, and they'll march, and that's awesome. But what infuriates me about that is that right now, in this moment, we could change course without violence, without protest. We could change the course of not only America, but the world. But people won't show the fuck up. You literally have a race in Georgia right now between a guy that is a fucking doorknob and a reasonable, intelligent human being, and the race is in question. Now, women have lost the right to agency over their own body in this country. And 50% of America still doesn't show up at the ballot box on election day. And yet, by God, if we're going to have a protest, they'll be packing a luncheon right out there. God damn it, we could vote down fascism if you just show up. And again, I'm going to get 5,000 emails right now, angry people yelling, "We don't show up." Yeah, you do. But I read the statistics from every voting office in this country after every election. And good day, it's 47% of registered voters show up. Okay? So you can be mad at me all you want to, but we still don't show up and vote. You tell me you want to protect democracy, don't exercise it. and this is what's so infuriating. Anyway, we're 10 minutes past time. I'm waiting for Bob to pop back up. And
yeah, I got a 10:30 meeting. I got a 10:30 meeting this morning, so I got to run. And I am sorry I was late. For some reason, I woke up thinking it was still Saturday.
That's the best kind of morning.
It's like
that's the best. That's the best kind of morning.
It's Saturday, I'll get stuff done. It's like, oh, it's Sunday. Oh no. I hear. Bob is holding up the book. Bob is holding the book. The book seems to be selling very, very well, and I'm really disappointed I wasn't able to get anything into the book on time. But I'm really touting it to my friends. And Jim, that's very good. To keep you from licking your balls. So okay.
Everybody know we got to fill that up with kibble.
But if I could do that, David, I wouldn't be on this podcast.
Or we'd have a lot more people watching.
I'm lucky if I could tie my shoes most days. Jesus. All right. All right, Bob, you're back to you, buddy. What do you got?
Oh, there's my alarm just went off.
You're not talking, Bob. Your mic's off.
I will see you. We got to do this more often. Sean is waving.
Hey, Sean.
Hello.
See you, Aiden.
All right.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye.
That's the reason everybody watches the podcast to see Aiden. We all watch the podcast just so we can see Aiden.
Hello, Aiden.
And he's got his own Corvette. Show him the Corvette. Show your car. See?
All right.
Oh,
That's a great car. See ya. You're still muted there, Bob. Can't hear you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, David.
Turn this
Talk to you
off.
soon.
All right.
You're muted there, Bob. You're muted. Can't hear you. Oh.
Hello. Now you can hear me.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I forgot I turned myself down just in case the dog started to bark. But I just wanted to say thank you both for many, many wonderful reads over the years. And thank you for showing up today. And thank you for your roles. Because Jim stepped out on a big limb with his essay in here. And Jim, thank you. And Adam Troy wrote possibly what I think will become a future classic story on pregnancy. Thank you both.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I was happy to be part of it. I'm honored to be part of it, as always with the stuff you put out, Bob. I'm always concerned when we're talking about things like abortion, and it's 4 white men sitting here talking about it, and I know you've done other podcasts on it, and I just want to be for my own conscience. I want to say that what you read from me is how I see things, and I'm not trying to speak for anyone else. And so, and I'm very much conscious of the fact that I'm a very privileged member of this society, and that I hope that I'm using that privilege to help and not make things worse. And so, again, that's mostly my own guilty conscience speaking, but I'm aware of it. Okay. And so,
I know.
With that said, please buy the book and enjoy it. And there are many people in there that are not straight white men, and
yes, they're true.
Read their stuff and not mine, but I hope to be a decent ally and
try to be
over everything.
I have to say, speaking for myself, first of all, the reason I was laughing just now is that somebody advised Gerrold Alexander just advised me to pet my cats, which is I appreciate the gesture. I appreciate the thought. It's like I'm thinking GA needed to be reminded to do that. I wouldn't have done that if she hadn't said so.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the thought behind that. And yes, I am a little I am a little aware. I am acutely aware that that the face I show the world and the demographic that I represent is in many ways the worst demographic there is. I recognize that, and I mean, short of tanning pills or surgery, there's very little I can do about that.
Yeah, and
Okay, and I am aware of that, and I'm also aware that a certain percentage of the time I will be short-sighted or dead wrong because of that. And I'm very much aware of that. And I do think that we do absolutely need these other voices. Just give me the little bit of thought that maybe sometimes I could be not totally full of crap. But I try not to be. But
right.
I know that a certain amount of time I will be, and in part because of my demographic.
Right. What you got, Bob? Because I got to get going here.
You gotta go, but you know what?
I yelled at too long. I probably pulled some stitches, and I'm doing things that I'm not supposed to be doing, and I'm going to get yelled at about it. And but I was happy to be here today. What else you got? You had what else did you have? You had MissCon or something on your agenda. Is that what it was? You
Say that again.
I thought you said you were going to talk about MissCon as well. Yeah, promote MissCon. Was that the other thing you were going to do? MissCon?
Nissan. What we were going to do is we were going to talk about the book. We were going to talk about the election coming up, and we were going to talk about Troy's story in your essay. But what we
Adam's story.
Adam's story. Sorry. The Adam's story. But what we got out of this was just an incredible talk, guys.
What's a grumpy old man talking about stuff?
So I'm going to let you go and say goodbye and remind you all that what's at stake is everything. It's choice of what religion we choose to or don't choose to do. It's our choice of who we prefer to be with. It's our choice about what we read. It's a choice about whether or not we're in charge of our own bodies. It's a choice of whether we can marry the person we love or not. So all I'm saying is get out to the polls and protect our choice.
Yes.
That's critical.
Hell of a lot easier to change the polls. Look, as somebody who's been to war, I'm telling you right now, it's a hell of a lot easier to change the world with a ballot than it is with a gun. And once the fighting starts, there ain't any going back. And I'm telling you, now is your chance. Now is your moment to change the course that we are on for the better. You gotta show up. It's as simple as that. And there's a hell of a lot of people there's a hell of a lot of people who went through a hell of a lot of stuff to make sure that you had the opportunity to vote. And I grant you that the voting systems, they're compromised. There's no doubt about it. But if you don't buy a lottery ticket, you can't fucking win. You got to go anyway. And if enough of us show up, it doesn't matter what they do. We're still going to beat them. And we're going to beat them in a manner that is American, the way the United States was designed to be changed, and not at the barrel of a gun.
I have nothing to add to that. That was terrific. That was perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
I got to
When
go.
Americans show up at the ballot box in huge numbers, Nazis lose.
That's
Goodbye.
right.